Happy Friday, welcome back. Concepts in Training, diving into the concept of reps in reserve and or RPE. Because what we're looking at when we look at those two different methodologies or implements in programming, we're looking at autoregulation. So diving into RPE first, that's just a rating of perceived exertion. Being able to kind of baseline, like max effort is a 10. And taking a step back, like near max effort is 9, close to near max effort, 8, right? Like, so we're getting a little, the farther we get away from 10 on RPE, that's a pretty more common way to describe autoregulation in training, all right? Reps in reserve is something some people use. It's used in the bodybuilding world a lot, but there's two different ways we can use reps in reserve. And personally, I like reps in reserve because it's a little easier to understand for new lifters and new individuals. So when we look at reps in reserve, what we're looking at is prescribing either a weight and then doing as many reps as possible until you've only got a prescribed number of reps left in the tank. All right, so let's just say we pick body weight on your pull-ups and you're gonna do a max weight or max set of pull-ups, and we say we want 2 to 3 reps in reserve. You're basically gonna get as close as you can to failure, but when you stop, you should still be able to do 2 to 3 extra reps, right? So I know that I can do 13 reps total. In terms of a pull-up, I might get 10 to 11 reps and stop there, even though I didn't get a true max. The other way we can do this reps in reserve is if we take a prescribed set and rep number and then add the reps in reserve to the end and then dictate our weight selection off of that. All right, so and this is a really easy way for, especially if you're a beginner, being able to kind of classify intensity. So let's just say we prescribe 3 sets of 6 with 2 to 3 reps in reserve. So whatever weight you pick, you should be able to get the number of reps plus whatever reps in reserve are there. So if I have 3 sets of 6, should be able to get 8 to 9 reps with whatever weight I choose. All right. Now the reason we use these methods, and the reason we use RPEs, the reason we use reps in reserve and auto-regulate like this, is that when we lift above a certain intensity all the time, we end up not recovering. And that's the big key of making progress, is you can only adapt to what you can recover from. So when we look at that reps in reserve, you might have days that are heavier and it's like 0 to 1 rep in reserve, 1 rep in reserve, maybe 1 to 2 reps in reserve. You might have 2 to 3, 3 to 4, right? Sometimes even 4 to 5. And depending on the adaptation you're chasing, or depending on what your end goal is, if you're working on power, you might have a higher reps in reserve, but your goal is to move that weight fast. All right, that goes for your accessories, that goes for your main lifts. When we start to look at those things, sticking to your reps in reserve allows you to auto-regulate your training and get a better adaptation. So reps in reserve, it's one of those things where if you see it, you can see it from a bodybuilding perspective of that weight selection. It's commonly used as a, getting close to failure but not hitting it specifically, but doing it with a set load. You can also get it as a load prescription of saying, I want to do 3 sets of 12 with 1 rep in reserve, so I should be able to get 13 reps. All right, so being able to understand that there's different ways to auto-regulate, but reps in reserve is a pretty common one, and then RPE is probably a little more common. If you actually look at them on a reverse scale, a 9 RPE would be like a 1 rep in reserve, and an 8 would be a 2 rep in reserve, and then a 7 would be a 3 rep in reserve, and modifying intensity based on those reps in reserve, a rating of perceived exertion. What it really comes down to is being able to auto-regulate your training based on how you feel daily, because one day you might not be able to lift a certain weight for X amount of reps, and another day you might feel great and be able to lift it for more than prescribed reps. So being able to understand that we can modify load based on a reps in reserve model, either as the prescribed load and doing as many reps as we can within a set parameter, or being able to get a set parameter and load up within that in that range. Same thing goes for RPE. Like I said, they kind of correlate well. If you look at top down, they kind of inversely work. Being able to understand that if we auto-regulate well, we get the best bang for a buck out of training long term.